Good evening, everyone. Broadcasting live August 26th, 2015. Today we have a quote from the Milinda Panha. So again, not the words of the Buddha. Robin, would you like to read for it? Would you mind reading for us?
Sure. As a mongoose approaches a snake to seize it only after having supplied his own body with an antidote, so too the earnest student of meditation, on approaching this world, abounding as it is in anger and malice, plagued by quarrel, strife, contention, and hatred, must first anoint his mind with the antidote of love.
Again, the danger, there seems to be a theme here. It's a good quote. Seems like a proper translation, but it's a part of a much larger whole, much larger. If you read through the list, they're beyond count. There's at least, looks like to be almost 100 similes. King Melinda asks Nagasena, with how many qualities must a bhikkhu be endowed to realize arahatship? So what qualities are necessary to attain arahatship? This is an important chapter, an important dialogue. It's an important question, right? And the answer is just awesome. He doesn't just say 3 or 5 or even 10. He says, the bhikkhu, O king, who wishes to attain arahatship must take is an odd translation, take 1 quality of the donkey, 5 qualities of the rooster, 1 quality of the squirrel, 1 of the female panther, 2 of the male panther, 5 of the tortoise, 1 of the bamboo, 1 of the bow, 2 of the crow, 2 of the monkey, 1 of the gourd, 3 of the lotus, 2 of the seed, 1 of the sal tree, 3 of a ship, 2 of an anchor, 1 of the mast, 3 of the pilot, 1 of the sailor, 5 of the ocean, etc., 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 etc. And then Melinda asks Nagasena, what did you mean by what do you mean he needs 1 quality of the such and such and such and such, all the way down to the mongoose. The old translation is mongoose. The new word, I guess, is mongoose. So then finally, he gets to number 35. Venerable Nagasena, what is that one quality of the mongoose you say he ought to take? What is it? And then we get this. So it's perfectly valid and it's a great teaching. It's just that there tends to be an emphasis on metta. If you've noticed, Buddhists tend to emphasize this because it's nice, it's comforting. It feels good to practice metta, and that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that. It's just that the need to feel good is problematic, and metta isn't going to bring you by itself to arahatship. So it's actually taken out of context like this. And it's not a proper representative of the series of teachings. It's important. It's an important protection. Metta is an antidote. And it's not an antidote, it's like a protection. So the point is that snakes are poisonous, and apparently the mongoose has a way of neutralizing the poison. Metta is something that neutralizes the poison. It keeps the poison of hate, the poison of anger, the poison of malice and quarrel and strife and contention from overcoming the heart. Metta is one of the 4 protective meditations. There's Buddha, mindfulness of the Buddha protects you from doubt or uncertainty. Mindfulness of death protects you from laziness, complacency. Mindful or meditation on repulsiveness protects you from lust. Meditation on metta protects you from anger. So these 4 are the 4 protective meditations. Metta is one of them, and it's one of the great Brahma Viharas, the abodes of God, godly abodes, highest abodes, ultimate abidings. Because it's in samsara, it's the high, it's one of the highest. These are ultimate, but they're still in samsara because it still involves thoughts about beings, about entities, which don't really exist. Nonetheless, it's a quality of an arahant to have metta, to give rise to metta easily. It's an important outcome of the practice as well. The best way to cultivate the 4 Brahma Viharas is to be enlightened, is to first cultivate insight meditation, because it clears the mind, cleans the mind, purifies the mind. A pure mind is much better able to give rise to love, compassion, appreciation, and equanimity. But I would recommend reading the entire section of the Milinda Panha. You can find it on Sacred Text. It's an old translation, but in some cases the old ones are good. So if you go to sacred-texts.com /BUD, you'll find this file. And there's the link to the second half of the Milinda Panha. You should read the whole of the Milinda Panha. The first half is also awesome. But it's what we're looking at is I don't know where it is now. It's in there somewhere. It's just such a huge yeah, it's in book 7. So here's what we're actually looking at today is in book 7, part 2, book 7 or something. Book 7, chapter 1. Here's the link to the actual chapter, and you'll see right away the one quality of the ass. And by ass is meant donkey. And 5 of the cock is meant rooster. And so you can see where this teaching comes from. If you scroll down to number 35, you'll see, and one of the mongoose, and that's one of the mongoose. So then you have to scroll down and see. Actually, the mongoose is in the next chapter, I think, chapter 2. It's worth reading. The whole of the Milinda Panha is worth reading. It's an awesome text, and there's some debate as to whether it was actually all between Milinda and Nagasena. Nagasena was the Arahant who's supposed to have given all these answers, but academics believe that it was over time added to, expanded. But who knows? Either way, it's an awesome book. It's commentarial, and it's quite a bit later after the Buddha. I think I'm not actually sure how old it's supposed to be. I'm not really up on these things. How old is the Milinda Panha?
You can look that up while you reset the live stream.
discussion about 500 years after the death of the Buddha. So it's around the time of the commentaries. You have to read the introduction. But read the introduction because it's really interesting to learn about the Milinda Panhai. It's a part of Buddhist history. It's something we should read. It might even be more interesting to us than the Visuddhimagga. Visuddhimagga is a bit difficult going, no? But the Milinda Panhai is awesome for just questions and answers. It'd be a good one for the book of the month for, it'd be like the book of the year or more for the Stack Exchange group. But it would definitely be worth studying. Oh well, after the Visuddhimagga, I guess. I've never read the whole Milinda Panha. It's big, but it would be worth reading.
Pardon me, Bante, are you able to reset the live stream? It went down.
Yep.
Thanks.
It's supposed to reconnect by itself. Why isn't it doing that? It's on auto reconnect and it's not doing it. Okay, so that's about all I have to say about that. Does anybody have any questions? We're answering questions at meditation.sirimangalo.org, and you have to be here live to ask them. I know, it's a big pain, but maybe we'll change that someday.
We have someone who had to be at work, so he popped on and typed it in a little earlier.
Maybe we could have people mail in the questions. Like send me a letter, a postcard or something. Then I can have them here and read them. I'll have a list of them. Because, going through email, and email is just too easy and people are lazy, and if you put the effort to mail it to me, then I know you really want an answer. I mean, by lazy, I mean a lot of the questions have already been answered and they're on the internet already. So I get a lot of questions, and I've as a rule stopped answering them via email, because the other thing is answering via email is, then you have to find a keyboard, a computer. If people sent me postcards, if you wanted a question answered on the live stream, send the postcard. Mahosada is 2 words. Ryan's asking, what does Mahosada mean something? Mahosada, you have to read I guess you're maybe reading the Umaga Jataka? Jataka 540, I don't remember. 542, 545. The Mahaumaga Jataka is the awesome one that I recommended everyone read. If you read it, the beginning gives you the answer. It would if you knew Pali. And it's a funny way to give it's almost as though they added to the story because of his name. You're kind of suspicious about which way it happened, but the story goes that Mahosada, oh, congratulations, just finished reading it. What did you think? Let me know. I'll start answering. Let us know what you thought of it. Whether it was right to say it's worth reading. So this woman gets pregnant, and if this woman gives birth, and as she's giving birth, the king of the angels, Saka, realizes that this guy is going to be, this is the Bodhisattva, and he's going to be a great being. And so he wants to start him off famous. He wants to let everyone know how awesome he is. So he takes a root, like a heavenly medicine, and he sticks it in the baby's hand when the baby is being. If you read the online translation that's done by Kawal, it's wrong. I started translating it, and it says that he shows himself. He went down. The king of the gods went down and made himself visible, and stuck this root in the baby's fist. But what he actually did is made himself invisible. It's a mistranslation. Anyway, not a big deal. So he stuck this root in the baby's hand, and when the baby comes out, they wonder, what's he got in his hand? And they say, oh, he's got this root in his hand. Well, what the heck? How did he get this root in his mother's womb? And they take it from him and they examine it and they start using it, and they realize that it's this very, very potent, awesome, great medicine. And just the smallest bit of this root will cure any sickness. That's what it says. That's the story. So they give him the name of great medicine, Maha Osada, or Mahosada, when it comes together. Osada means medicine, Maha is great. So Mahosada means great medicine. Yeah, it's pretty epic. It's an epic Jataka. It goes from before he's born, and then detailing the birth, childhood, growing up, all the way until he's all the things it's a much a story. He totally he becomes, well, first of all, he solves problems of all of his friends when he's 7 years old. He solves all these dilemmas. Then he's spotted by the king, and they want to test him, so he goes through all these tests put on by the king, and those are really funny. My favorite one is this, the kings, they want to test Mahosada, and so they say, well, if you're so wise, here's what we want you to do. The king is tired of his old pond, his old bathing pond, and he wants you to bring him a new one to the palace. So bring him a new bathing pond. And he says, he tells Mahosada's village that if the village is incapable of doing it, he's going to fine every household 1,000 gold or something like that. And they bring it to Mahosada, and Mahosada says, oh, is that all? That's easy. And he says, here's what you're going to do. And so he tells them what to do. Next morning, these men, big, strong men, show up at the gate, covered in mud and water and carrying ropes and pitchforks and clubs and so on, and demanding to talk to the king. And the king sees them and he says, what's wrong? What are you doing here without what I asked you to get? And they say, oh, we tried, your majesty. We found a beautiful one, and we had her all tied up, and we're bringing her to the city. But when she got close to the city, she freaked and ran off. Here's what we ask, your majesty. Give us your old bathing pond, and we'll mate them together and bring them both back. Surely if she has a mate, she'll come back. So they turn it back on him. And of course he can't give them the old pond because it's a ridiculous request. So he gives them all these impossible requests, and Mahosada manages to solve them. And then finally he's made a advisor to the king, and then there's these 4 other advisors who try to sabotage him and to frame him for all sorts of things. And it's amazing what he does. Then he gets married, and then he falls out of favor with the king, and the king wants to marry this woman. And there's like other kings attacking this. The other kings come and attack their city of Videha, and Mahosada repulses them. And then they trick the king. The king is really dumb. He's a simpleton. He's actually, later on, I think he becomes Laludai, who was the monk who was famous for being kind of low intelligence. I don't think he ever became enlightened. He was like Goofy, basically. And so he makes all these silly judgment calls, and the enemy kings trick him into wanting to marry the king's daughter. And so, but they say you have to come to our city and get married there. And Mahosada goes first. So Mahosada tries to stop him, says, "You moron! It's a trap. I mean, obviously." And the king expels him, and Mahosada, okay, fine, I'll go and fix things for him. So he goes there, and that's the final part, really the climax of the book, how he manages to stop this king from falling into this trap. What he does. I mean, it's kind of worldly, I would say, the whole story, but for inspiration, I think it's interesting, if nothing else. Anyway, I think we've got some more important
We have some
questions.
questions. I've been experiencing strong emotions without any noticeable thoughts or reasons recently, since meditating regularly. I was wondering if this may be related to the meditation work I've been doing.
It can be. Meditation does several things. It um, keeps you from avoiding feelings, right? So normally we have ways of stopping our feelings from building up. When problems come, we divert our attention, seek out entertainment or intoxication, diversion. And so the diversion diverts us for a time, but it builds up anyway, and eventually it does come crashing down on us. But it's this game of cat and mouse that we play. Meditation isn't like that. Meditation, these emotions are constantly building up until you get strong enough in the mind to cut them off, to see them as they are, and to stop, to cut the chain. But until you can do that, because you're not avoiding them, they're going to build up, and you, until you can be free from them, they're just going to build up and build up. And this is the practice, is learning how to cut them off sooner, to cut them off more frequently, so they don't build up, and so you have less of them to focus on. The other thing is meditation opens the mind. It stops you from, I guess you could say, repressing. So another thing we do is, but it's still, in reality, it's still just diversion. But another way of looking at it, I guess, is that meditation opens your mind up and allows you to experience the feelings. The other thing is meditation might instigate negative feelings because of the pain. It actually, not just normal emotions, but it actually can instigate stronger emotions, because you would never otherwise experience such unpleasant states, right? Normally we would never sit through pain. So we would never get such terrible anger and frustration that comes from sitting through hours and hours of pain and unpleasantness, chaotic thoughts, the stress that comes from these things, until we learn to be objective and to stop reacting to them. It can be far above and beyond what we normally experience. So yeah, definitely it's common. Shouldn't be something to be worried about, absolutely. But it's something that we have to change. We have a new approach to reality, to stop avoiding and to start confronting. But when you're not strong enough, confronting is more painful.
What kind of food should we avoid to improve our practice?
There's no teaching about that. There's no teaching on what food you should avoid. I just read something about how breakfast is, they were just praising breakfast again, but it was more for losing weight, which, no, you feel less hungry if you have a big breakfast, which is useful, still not as far as losing weight, but as far as being a monk or a meditator. It shows, in a way, how easy it is to keep the 8 precepts, how it's easier than you might think, because you have a big meal in the morning, and that tides you over for the day. But no, dietary restrictions are not thought to have any I mean, they're not taken seriously enough to be included in the teachings.
Not that it's a food, but you don't recommend caffeine during meditation, right?
Right, but yeah, I mean, drugs are another thing.
Well, coffee, that kind of seems like not food, but,
It's a
it
drug.
goes with food.
It's a drug. It's in, like chocolate, you might have an argument, but coffee, no. I mean, I don't know. Some people say they get high off of chocolate, but I've never felt that. But coffee definitely is a drug. It's not.
Coffee doesn't, or chocolate doesn't have caffeine. It has theobromine, I think it's called,
Yeah.
but that functions just
Someone
like
said it
caffeine.
does have caffeine. I'm not sure if it.
It has theobromine, which
Yeah,
functions exactly
similar.
like caffeine.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Right. Mm.
yeah.
I've never felt it from felt anything from chocolate. Not like I feel from coffee.
Yeah, I make a very strong hot cocoa with baking cocoa, and if you drink 2 cups of that, you're
That's
wired.
true. I did that once, but it was still a bit of a different feeling. I don't. It's not
Yeah,
exactly the same. But yeah,
yeah,
that was.
you're right. Yeah, I shouldn't have said exactly. It's very similar
Yeah,
to caffeine,
I
but
definitely it was too much chocolate. I remember that. I did the
yeah,
hot cocoa thing with the powder, baking powder, or baking
yeah,
cocoa, whatever it is.
it's very strong.
Very strong.
Is is this the medicine who you were referring to before, Mahasoda? Is this the medicine Buddha or Bodhisattva?
No, Mahosada is the bodhisattva. It's just the name of the man who the bodhisattva was for that life. He was born and they named him Mahosada.
There's someone else named Medicine Buddha, I believe, in Tibetan Buddhism, so no relation.
Nope.
No. Okay. Bhante, there are physical locations, for example, where I walk my dog or travel routes to work that trigger negative thoughts that I find hard to let go of. What can I do to help me cleanse these places without avoiding them?
Well, there's no such thing as negative thoughts. You have to be careful. A thought can't be negative. A thought is a thought. If you think, I'm going to kill my parents or something, it's still just a thought. But if you start to have the desire to do something wicked and evil, like you want to do it, then that's a problem. But just having stray thoughts can be, it can be just a misfiring of the brain and so on. But yeah, it can be triggered by places. The places bring about memories, but they don't necessarily bring about emotions. Emotions can be negative. Emotions can be harmful. But it's important that you separate the thought out from those because the thought is neutral. And if you can experience the thought or the recognition, you recognize something, and you go there. You can say knowing, or recognizing, or if you have this, you feel in the mind, hey, I recognize that, or that reminds me of something. You can say reminding, or recognizing, or just thinking, or knowing, remembering, and that's it. If you can stick with that, then the emotions don't arise. When the emotions come up, I mean, it's part of our practice. There's no need to avoid such places. I mean, if it's extreme, if you have extreme states of obsession or whatever, their trigger, like people have PTSD, for example, then yeah, you might want to take it slowly. But I suppose you could. There's something to the idea if you couple meditation with exposure therapy, right? Where people talk about exposure, becoming exposed to things that you don't like can be useful, can be helpful. Well, I think if you have meditation, if you have mindfulness, there's an argument to be made there. And if you're cultivating mindfulness, then yeah, exposure would be useful.
You mentioned before some spiritual beings that belong to Maya. Could these beings be beyond some of the organized religions of the world who teach their followers to worship them?
I mean, behind some of the organized religions, I think. And by
Oh, I'm
Maya,
sorry.
you mean Mara? Maya is a Maya is more a Hindu concept. It's a bit different. But I think you mean Mara. And I think I did mention that not belong to, but the Maras are sort of the higher angels who keep everybody intoxicated. And yeah, I mean, from a Buddhist point of view, it's a reasonable hypothesis to suggest that such beings are those that are behind all of the many religions of the world. I bet there's angels who like to be worshipped. There's the angels. See, Brahmas are, Maras belong to the Paranimitta Vasavati angels, those angels that delight in the creations of others. So they enjoy seeing the things that, they enjoy manipulating others. And so they might start wars just to see what happens when you know, it's like playing video games, right? the, the angels use us to play video games, which is kind of sick, really. But yeah, it's more than sick. But you could probably could, which is terrible. You know, I mean, that's the thing, is angels are not necessarily good beings. To become an angel, you need to be awesome. You need to be beyond good. You need to be great. But once you become an angel, you get bored. You get, you know, conceited. You get infatuated with your pleasure and enjoyment, and you think you're all powerful and going to live forever. It's just like rich people. And we would say rich people became rich from good karma, so they did something good in the past. It doesn't mean they're going to stay good. They get lazy, they get complacent, and they start doing very, very bad things, thinking that they deserve, they forget through rebirth, they forget that they've done good deeds to get there. They think they deserve to be in power, etc. And so angels are very much the same. So I imagine, yeah, it's reasonable to suggest that the angels are involved with wars. You know, the idea of a god of war, there's probably lots of angels that claim the status of god of war, pretend to be, I am the god of war, follow me, etc.
So angels are kind of conceited?
No, they can be. They're just beings, so it's possible for an angel to have all sorts of evil thoughts and deeds. I think if they get really angry, they die. There's a teaching that angels can die from anger. So if they're really evil, I think they fall from the state of being an angel. But there are ways to avoid that, temporarily anyway.
Can one have emotional moments without attachment or reaction to it? It feels like witnessing it occurring without attachment. Is that healthy?
Depends what emotions you mean. If you're angry, that's not something wholesome, it's unwholesome. If you have desire, then that's also unwholesome. If you have love, that's a good emotion. Compassion, that's positive. That there are harmful emotions, and it doesn't matter whether you're attached or not. I mean, being unattached is important because it means you don't perpetuate it, but it's already not a good thing. You don't, I mean, you on one hand, you don't have to think like that. You can think it's harmless, you know, or you neutralize it further. It's inherently not good, but if you're mindful, if you just see it as anger or desire, then it is neutralized. So there's no future further cultivation of it. You know, since I've been doing these videos, interesting thing has happened.
What's that?
I think I've started losing subscribers on YouTube. I was just looking at the analytics. There's this page that's like a dashboard that tells you all what's going on. Not exactly losing subscribers, but the number of new subscribers has definitely gone down. The number of unsubscribes has gone way up.
Oh, maybe because people are getting a notification every single day about a new video.
Are you getting notification every day about a new video?
I took my notifications off just because my phone buzzes enough as it is.
You get notifications like that? Oh dear.
I was at one point, I forgot what it was, but it was something that was making my phone buzz. And since you often upload videos in the wee hours of the morning, my my phone was buzzing at 2 and 3 a.m., so I did have to silence that part of it. But
That's terrible. I think YouTube is. I don't think I'm getting any notifications for sure, but I think YouTube's on my spam list, probably for that same reason.
yeah,
Yeah,
it's all in the settings. You can get an audible notification like a Facebook message or anything else, but it is kind of annoying.
yeah, if you look at the day that I started doing these, the subscriptions went.
Wow. But those are all the fringe people. I think your core,
Yeah.
your core viewers are probably really happy to see you out there so often.
I mean, there's days where I lost 6 subscribers. I mean, I don't care. I mean, is it? But I mean, it's something when you think, oh, maybe this is people don't like this. Maybe this is some. But what can I do? What does it mean? We're not going to stop doing these videos, right? It'd just be
No.
nice if YouTube didn't send out, once a day notifications.
Yeah.
You
I mean, a
could
person just has to
upload it.
go into their settings to remove whatever it is that makes your phone buzz.
But
But
I guess if other people upload once a week, some people want to get those notifications.
maybe.
Huh.
Aruna gets notification via email for
Yeah.
new. That's a better way to do it.
That's what I think you can set it to that. But that's what I was getting. But I don't see them because I think I clicked that they were spam once. And now they go to my spam folder. There's a new live stream. Um, YouTube has a live stream interface, which we're not using. Wow. Oh, and there's an encoder. If I had an encoder, I think that's, yeah, I don't know. So this is Google doing too many things, and so there's Hangouts on the one hand, and then there's YouTube live streaming on the other hand. But I think the Hangout one is better, actually.
I've noticed that many monks whose Dhamma talks I've heard on YouTube begin their talks with Namo Tassa. Just out of curiosity, is there a reason you don't begin your online talks that way?
Sorry, I'm absorbed in this.
Oh, sorry.
Give me a second here.
Sure.
I shouldn't be, right? We're live. Yeah, let's talk about that later. Sorry. Question. Say again.
Yes. Question. Many
Yeah.
monks begin their Dhamma talks online with Namo Tassa, but you don't. Is there a reason that you don't?
Hmm. I don't consider my online talks to be formal. And even formal talks, I'll often just say Namattu Ratanatayasa. But if I give a formal talk in Thai, then I'll do it just the way they do Namo Tassa 3 times. And then you bring up a verse. You have a verse which you're going to talk about, or a passage like this quote, for example. If I was going to give a talk on this quote, I would say Namo Tassa 3 times, and then I would uh, repeat this. I mean, part of my reluctance to do such things is, on the one hand, lots of people like that kind of thing. On the other hand, there's always going to be people who say, "What the heck? I came here for something more objective, less religious, right?" I mean, why should you say Namo Tassa? I mean, I think it's great. It's a good thing. You're paying respect to the Buddha. But I don't know. I guess there's nothing wrong with it. But it just seems kind of hokey to some people, I think. So in order to keep this open to people and to keep it focused on what's important, I haven't been so respectful, I suppose. But it's not that. There's no When monks would go and teach people, look in the suttas, they didn't all say Namo Tassa before they started talking. But right, you're talking about the online talks. I don't know. It seems a bit ostentatious, I think is the word. I guess there's a good argument for it. It's respectful, no? And it's tradition.
We do start our Visuddhimagga class with someone taking refuge every week, which is nice. I think that's really nice.
It's a good tradition. I guess it's part of the what is the audience? What is the context? So the context of YouTube, I think it's probably a bad idea because of this sort of the niche, I guess, that my channel is set to fill is a sort of a very secular, open, low barrier for entry. Just giving the bare facts and ideas about meditation practice. So to do something traditional like that, I mean, something that would appeal only to people who have faith in the Buddha, it's, I don't know. I mean, it's a tradition that has arisen. I don't think it's something that they did in the time of the Buddha, though I can't say for sure. So it's context, if I give a talk, I suppose I don't even do it that often. I mean, when I probably should when I'm doing it in front of Buddhists. But I've seen other monks who just say Namatu Ratanatayasa, and that's it. It basically means the same thing. It's actually more all-inclusive. It includes the three. Namatu, may there be my homage. Ratanatayasa, to the three Ratanas. Triple gem. Oh, when you publish your video, you can uncheck the box saying notify. Well, there you go.
That's what it must have been.
Except I'm not publishing. These are automatically publishing. Doesn't work. See, that's the thing. That shouldn't happen for live streams. You shouldn't get notifications for live streams. But obviously people are, because I don't think people would be unsubscribing this month otherwise. Anyway, that's fine. I mean, what's a subscription, right? The subscription means you get those notifications. It doesn't mean you won't see these things. I wouldn't want to subscribe to my channel. Gee, getting daily updates.
Simon wants to know if it's Mara making you lose subscribers. What is the difference between the aggregate of sensations and the aggregate of perceptions?
Yeah, I don't use the word perceptions, but some people do. The word sanya is interesting, and someone, a bhikkhuni, recently pointed out to me that she thinks it means perception or consciousness, but I think that's unreasonable. It's only because the Buddha uses the word sanya in different contexts to mean different things. But sanya in the context of the three refuge, in context of the five aggregates, refers to recognition and seeing things as similar to something else. So when you see a shiny gold coin, and the recognition that it's shiny and that it's gold. Wait, the recognition. No, I don't know. The recognition of the color, that's gold. The recognition that it's gold, that is sanya. The mere experience is, there's just a simile I was thinking about, but it's not really important. But sanya is when you recognize this is like something else. So I see this picture in front of me, I say, hey, that looks like me. But it's not me, but it looks like me. It's like similar, so that's a recognition. Hey, that's my face I can see on the screen. Oh, look, there's Robin. But it's not. It's a recognition, and this similarity. That's sanya. Vedana, which probably is your word you're translating as sensations, is simple feeling. It's the aspect of experience that is painful feeling, pleasant feeling, or neutral feeling, either physical or mental. So those are the difference of those between those two. If what you're talking about is Vedana and Sanya, then that's the difference. They're quite different, but they're completely different.
What's the difference between liking and disliking and craving and aversion?
I don't understand how that's confusing. Liking is liking, disliking is disliking. I'm confused. They're, they're opposites. Right? It's like black and white. What's the difference between black and white? They're completely different. Desire feels like a magnet. Aversion is like the opposite magnet.
Would you ever consider doing a live online meditation event?
Sure. We could do from 8 to 9, we could do live online meditation.
Oh,
But a hangout on air, it would be, the problem is it would be recorded and people would get notifications. It's a bit ridiculous. Another thing we can do is have a webcam set up, which we did before. I did downstairs. I mean, once we have our own place, it'll be more easy, I think. Set up a camera and then a web page that shows the camera, but it would just be flashing images every second or so. And it's funny, that would be uploading. It's interesting. Yeah, uploading the image, and people could go to the web page and could see what's happening in the room at any given time. In fact, I could have that on 24/7, really, because it's uploading, and uploading in for our internet provider, it doesn't count against our limit, so we can upload as much as we want. Could even stream video constantly. Could do a constant JPEG. You have to upload JPEGs, so it would be how many JPEGs you can upload. Can you do one a second? I don't know. I assume so.
that was cool when you had the webcam. People from the very early days of the meditation group will remember that because it was only about a week or so that was up, right? That was cool.
Yeah, and then I left or something happened and I just didn't. I mean, it's in the living room downstairs and people use that room, so
Yeah.
setting a camera up, it's not really.
Now, if everyone was going to be live for the meditation event, that platform that you found, the big blue button, that would be cool. But what was the problem with that? You needed server space?
Well, it's resource intensive. We don't actually. The problem is it uses Nginx. I don't know how you say that. Yeah, I think it's pronounced Nginx. And we use Apache, which most people use. Hey, I should talk to the Linux guys, see if they can move us over to this. So like, I've got reliable Linux people in Australia, who I guess we should just trust, right? Why not? Give them the keys to the ship, even though I've never met them. See, that's the problem, really. We don't know them, and even if they are reliable IT people, it doesn't mean they're Buddhist. Should we just be trusting? I mean, nothing's most likely going to happen. And what could possibly happen? What's the worst? But if I gave it to them, then it would just be a matter of moving us over to Nginx, figuring out how to get WordPress running on Nginx, and we don't have a very complicated setup. PHP is the only thing that we have to get working, really. Oh, and MySQL. PHP and MySQL. Don't think there's much else. Oh, I think that's it. I don't know. I'll have to talk to someone about setting up Nginx on our server, because that's right now it's all set up actually. Big Blue Button is on our server. It just won't run because it requires Nginx to be running.
Oh, okay.
The other thing I'm not sure is whether having it run with Nginx means we can also have WordPress running as well. Because what they want you to do is put this on its individual server. That's the problem here. So I don't know if that's possible. I should actually just consult them first. Consult them about what they think. Whether they can get me some information on this.
And then a follow-up on the question about liking, disliking, craving, and aversion. The latter seems more attainable to eradicate.
Oh, the pairs. The difference between liking and disliking and craving and aversion. I see. Well, they're just words, no? Liking is craving. Disliking is aversion.
I think you've spoken about that, how things that make you suffer are easier to recognize, easier to, the things that we like are harder to, not explaining it right, but the things that make you suffer are easier to be mindful of and to
Oh, yeah.
recognize
I
and
don't
to,
think that's what they're asking now. I think they're asking liking and disliking versus craving and aversion, which still doesn't make too much. I mean, they're pretty much synonymous as well. But if you're saying the difference between liking and disliking, I mean, yeah, there's that as well. But, there's lots of differences. Liking can be pleasurable. Disliking is always painful. One of my old friends from high school, just posted recently on Facebook, Anger Week, and it was all in praise of anger. And I posted a comment, which is probably a bad idea, but I posted a comment saying, "But anger is so terrible." Basically, she wrote back, and I said, "What good could come of that?" And she said, "Oh, she was expression, letting it out. Um, as long as it's not hurting anyone, anger can be helpful," or something like that.
what's hurting you?
I said, I disagree that that's possible. Yeah, that's what I said, basically. It's painful. Anger is intrinsically painful. And anger leads you to be more angry, leads you to be more likely to get angry. Emotions are habitual. I guess the point is that they're tired of repressing their anger. They're tired of fighting against it. So they just give in. Well, we'll see how that works for them.
Is there any benefit from school and education, or is it pointless?
Depends what school and what education. If it gets you a job, well, that's not pointless because then you can live in the world. Be more streamlined if you were to just become a recluse and leave the world. But if you're not going to do that, then yeah, there's a big point to going to school because it helps you get a job. If it doesn't help you get a job, then yeah, maybe it's pointless. I mean, a degree in fine art would probably, from a Buddhist point of view, be pointless. Sorry to fine art students. I mean, to some extent, people would argue that fine art can be used in spiritual expression, but I don't know. Maybe a degree in. I start picking on people's degrees. I don't know. A degree in mathematics. No, but all these things would help you get a job. But if it doesn't help you get a job, then yeah, it could be potentially useless. On the other hand, even as a monk, some skills come in handy. I can't think of many offhand, but I've had to use math skills as a monk, when building things. If you were a film student, then yeah, you could do the kinds of things I'm doing a lot easier because you'd have some background knowledge of things like reverse telecine. Remember the nightmare that was reverse telecine, trying to understand this concept and why my videos were not They were not coming out properly. Reverse telecine.
Is all liking and disliking supposed to be eradicated?
Yes. It's not even that it's supposed to be, it's that you eventually realize that it's harmful and not useful, and so you give it up naturally. It's not something you have to believe or you have to subscribe to as being bad, but if you look at all things equally, you'll be able to see the difference, and that liking and liking don't help you. Liking and disliking don't help you at all. Okay, maybe we'll stop it there. It's been almost an hour. If you have more questions, should be back tomorrow. So see you all then.
Thank you, Bhante.
Thank you, Robin. Good night.
Good night.